Hello Planet Poke people, it's me, DeoGenZ, here with Pokemon of the Week. With my lights restored and power recharged to my laptop, I present to you the Sneering Wall Stall Steelix. This poke is powerful when it comes to the defensive wall community. It's in the rarely used tier, so perhaps you aren't expecting to see this in the higher echelons of tiers, but it's fun to mess around with if you ever do go RU. Take a look at that whopping base stat of 200 defense. Now, then take a look over at its abilities. It's even got a couple of abilities that will work in its defensive graces and in some case make it a more offensive wall. If you want to make your wall a bit more of an attacker, take Sheer Force. That will 1.3 times effectively boost your power, but it will only do that for moves like Crunch that have an effect, and here's a caveat, the effect of that move will then be cancelled out, so Crunch won't lower defense, but it will be 1.3 times as powerful. Rockhead protects from recoil damage. Bam! If you want to have a powerful, normal type attack of 120 with no recoil, with no need to recharge, nothing, then you want Rockhead. But if you would love Sturdy, which is sort of like a Focus Band, or Focus Sash, I always get the two confused, but the one that lets you remain on if you get hit with it a one-hit KO. And now this shouldn't happen if you can predict. With the 4 weaknesses that it has, most of what Steelix comes up against it will resist, and in some cases will even nullify completely. They will have no effect, like electricity. So that's why on this stall wall you want to make it have Stealth Rocks. This is the perfect Pokemon to throw in to catch your opponent off guard if you don't like to set up in the beginning. I understand, maybe you want to boost your power, then baton pass it off to another player, and you don't want to waste time on Stealth Rocks if it's not necessary. But with Stall Wall here being a steel wall against your opponent, it can go out pretty safe on most cases than to set up Stealth Rocks. Aside from being able to set up a supporting move that is vital for all metagame masters, I also like to mix up the EVs here. I don't fully invest a max out on attack just because I want to have some staying power, so that's why I split with HP and attack, but you do want to invest a good chunk of its EVs into attack because the remaining moves that it will have, ideally Gyro Ball, and this works the slower you are, the better. That's why I give it a nature that will decrease speed. And Earthquake, another stab move that is an overall very strong move, and if you switch out on your opponent's electric type, they will most likely retract that Pokemon, so think carefully what move you're going to use. If you haven't set up Stealth Rocks, do that. But jumping right to the Earthquake may be a tad predictable and may allow your opponent to switch out to something that they have that can levitate, knowing damn well that a Steel Ground type is going to have its stab moves, one of which is going to be Earthquake. And Roar is good to frustrate your opponent, further stall them out. That's why it's a stall wall, because even if you want to risk it and take a Fire Blast or take a Hydro Pump, you can still roar them out on the off chance that you survive, and this is of course why Sturdy is an excellent ability for the overly defensive players, because here you don't have to worry or risk anything with your HP being lost and not getting to pull Stealth Rocks, not being able to roar. You will have a guaranteed last-ditch effort, because do know, defense is not the same thing as special defense. So Flamethrower, Hydro Pump, really strong, super effective moves that will take down this wall. It can do it pretty handily, because we're not investing anything in special defense, and compared to its 200 base defense, 65 is not so great. So you're probably wondering right now, what other ways can I make my wall stall sneer even larger? Well, I'm glad you asked, dear viewer, because there's 2 prime ways that you can do this: Curse and Trick Room. Last week, when the lights were out, I did mention a Pokemon Reuniclus. Apparently, I didn't pronounce it right. Still don't care. But it had the capability of learning Trick Room, which contorts and twists dimensions to make it so Pokemon with less speed go first. They're the ones with priority. So all that dedicated hard work and EV training that your opponent did to train up that super fast striking sweeper, it's going to be useless in the face of your wall stall, because with its base of speed being 30, and ideally you getting up some curses to upgrade your attack and defense, the two traits that we look at on training this set EV-wise the most, and it degrades your speed on top of that, so you're slower and slower and slower. There's not much that will be able to out-de-speed a Steelix once you've hit it up with a couple of curses. So if you don't want to take the cowardice way out of roaring out your foes and just hoping that Stealth Rocks will do enough damage on them, you can take the Steelix by the steel head knobs, I don't know if I could necessarily call those horns, but the steel head knobs, and drive straight into your opponent, pile drive them, pound them with more powerful attack and boosted defense. And with the inclusion of leftovers for defensive players, you'll be able to last on the field longer. If you want more of a somewhat sweeping wall stall, which is kind of a strange thing for this Pokemon to be, I wouldn't recommend you using it as a sweeper because it's mainly defensive. But if you want it to have more hitting power, go for the Life Orb. That's about all the time I have for today's episode of Pokemon of the Week. Let me know what you think below of this Steadfast Steel Pokemon. It's one of my favorites of the second gen. It's one of my favorite Steel types, period. But then again, there are a whole array of awesome Steel types. What's your favorite Steel? Just wondering. And hey, speaking of Steel, are you a Pokemon trainer who would love to steal Pokemon? Well then, my friend, head on over to youtube.com/DeoGenZ and I'll show you how to do it with my custom-built Snag'em machine and Pokemon Coliseum. That's right, guys, doing 100% walkthrough over there, so check it out, and I'll see you next week.